Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Death Session number 53. New Year's Day, if you will, for this channel. And we're not going to spend too much time talking about what I talked about last week, which is taking a little bit of a bow for myself. That is, I guess, the process a lot of us have to go through. And it's really tough because I think when you get quieter, or if you can get into a little bit of the flow state by exercising, walking, running, paddle sports, meditation, a lot of the arts, singing, dancing, these things that get you out of the realm of the intellect. If you really start to feel that inner connection to, which often can come from nature, and outer, connecting outer, or grounding, all these things that people do, if you start to listen to that, then the idea of taking a bow for yourself, or doing things for yourself, or taking joy in things for yourself, or notions of contentment or inner peace and things, the battle, and I guess some of it is spiritual in nature, but the battle for me is always the tempering self-satisfaction as a thing to avoid, I think, but also if you frame it like I do in my show, as not letting yourself down, which is just sort of means standing up for yourself. That's a big one, right? And that can mean a lot of different things. Asserting for yourself, that's a different thing. And then it's the constant juggle and the constant balancing act of that also means not taking on shit that ain't your purview, or taking on exterior things that are much like energy drinks and sugar, and it's sort of an emotional stimulant. And it's why I wonder, I don't like the idea that it was, everything was peachy keen before social media. I don't think that was true. And relative to how it is today, I've always been a very pop culture guy, so I've always been into periodicals and media, and getting the paper every day when I lived in New York. Not so much in LA because it's the 21st century and papers are expensive, and so you get the aggregated, curated feeds on your home pages, et cetera, but I guess to some degree I was more culturally literate than the next guy or people I talk to. And nowadays, I don't know that differentiation is even possible, but it is, again, what are you and what has replaced? And were you more informed because it was something you sought before, or are you less informed because now the veil has been lifted on some of the untruths and all that stuff? Or all I know is that there are things that I would skip because I could pick the section of the paper I wanted to read, and I wouldn't get stuff piped into my cortex that, while I'm sure important to know, is bad for your adrenals and bad for you taking umbrage. Now, you can't live in a bubble of beauty, and you can't live in a idealistic world of peace, harmony, unless you really, go to a retreat and make that your life. You're going to inevitably, as much as you have worked and hard efforts to quell that beast, to get inner peace, to sometimes take pride in something that not many people are aware of, to take the victories of knowing, you got things done, the joy of doing, the joy of completing things, the joy of not being a hypocrite in your own mind, not being a shit talker, being a man who does not just talks, and things like that. You can't do it all the time. or maybe you can, and that's the process of getting better at this stuff. And then again, moving into the new year, what the hell am I going to do differently to not so much to ensure I get my numbers up or to make this thing a thing? It's just, what am I going to do differently based on what I know worked and what I know didn't work? And I think I just have to clarify for myself. I'm not a how-to channel, because what happens is, what you start to learn about this process of YouTube is the dashboard behind the desk session, behind every channel, is you uploading and you figuring out that vocabulary in the platform and what works and what doesn't work. There's this shorthand or this and I'm all over the place, and I'm learning, and I'm watching too many videos, and my eyes are glazing over, and most of them say the same thing. So I've implemented what I can, but I'm not doing edits and and things like that. So, but every week I vacillate between how to label it, how to in the back of the house settings, how do I what do I tell the algorithm I am? It's because it's not really how-to, because I think a how-to is, I've looked at how-to videos, how to replace brake lights on my car, how to change the windshield wiper fluid on my car, how to change the battery in the key fob, these things. And, I don't look for how many views. I look for how short the fucking thing is, so that I don't have to watch somebody meander. I just want to see him pop the thing open and stick the thing in, and then I know what to do. So I always look for shortest video, and I don't care. But that's a how-to channel or a how-to video, and that's not what I'm doing. And then if I'm looking for short videos, I am turning people off by giving them long videos. So I'm kind of in a quandary as to what to do. And it's trial and error is a time suck, right? And that's why people hire coaches or use AI and all these things too. But what happens is, if you notice though, honestly, if you're really being honest, yes, you automate. Yes, maybe even get the numbers up. Yes, you have less arduous efforts, but you get this homogeneity of content, and it all starts to look the same, and it all starts to have the same cuts and it's all because this promise of a democratized platform of the internet, and everything goes, eventually still gets siloed into things that work, things that don't. You start to see people biting other people's, stealing memes, regurgitating memes, relabeling them, people serving their political purposes by posting a video, and then you find out it's a 3-year-old video, and meanwhile you're getting pissed off, or you're getting excited or tantalized, or you're getting sad. And what winds up happening is, I don't know that these would be the concerns of the day back when you would either pick up, like I would pick up Vibe magazine once a month. Now that didn't get me riled up, unless I didn't like who's on the cover, and that's a mild irritant, And then my father worked for the New York Times for 35 years. I seldom picked up the Times because I lived in New York and I rode the trains, and I'd get the Post. Oops, sorry. I picked up the Post because it was 20. You put a quarter on the table and walk out of the bodega with your paper, or whatever it was at the time, 50 cents, and you could read that joker before you got to 14th Street, And whether it had slants or political affiliations, I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that it was a very quintessential New York thing, because there'd be a water main break and it would flood 23rd Street, and there'd be a funny, the famous headlines, anchors away, or out with the whatever. Somebody's got that skill of writing headlines, which is back to what you would have to do on your labels for this channel. You know what I mean? And I don't know what you describe this as, but what I am attempting to do is sort of the anti-AI, the anti-clip channel, clickbait. I am showing whoever is watching what I'm thinking about, what I'm saying. I'm constructing sentences. It's extemporaneous speech. It's unfiltered. The lack of preparation isn't what I'm showcasing. I'm showcasing staying in some realm of beginning, middle, and end off the dome, which would lead me to think, or let the viewer know, that this is as sincere as it can be, but also that skill may be fleeting and maybe not of interest to anyone, that people can go off on a tangent without notes, without scripts rolling down, without edits, and maybe without a lot of interesting shit to say. That is the risk you take. What I think I might try to do is to see if I can stay with a theme or find a theme every week, which I kind of do as I'm just setting up the equipment, and to stay on track with. I've had a down week as far as it's concerned with the return of Otis Redding, because of the good fortune of some auditions that I had to meet deadlines, and that took my attention away from that. And I'm still doing the physical therapy, and I'm still trying to make big decisions in my life. So I tend to be a fixator, and I tend to be a this and then person. That I tend to have a very linear flow chart of it's going to be hard for me to figure out what next steps are until I know what my day-to-days are and things like that. And I need to be a little bit more fluid, and I need to be a little more flexible, and I also need to take some chances and or be braver about things. But one of the auditions, the inevitable agony of tell us a little bit about yourself, and now it's a self-tape, so it's really annoying, and that's what I do here is I talk to nobody, but it's artificial when you're auditioning. You're standing in front of a blue screen or a gray screen or whatever, and you're just trying to and you would normally be at an audition, and they would try to get the ball rolling, and they would probably ask you a better question than that, but this thing is imaginary. They tell us a little bit about yourself. And what I've learned is, even if it's not the thing that is a lot about yourself, just say something. Don't do the and don't do the what's the perfect answer. And don't even sometimes answer it. Because do I want everybody, you get to do more takes with the self-tape. And I had a friend who works in casting who's my buddy enough to help me with these self-tapes, and I help him, hopefully. But he asked the questions over the camera, so it was a more natural exchange. And we had 3 or 4 attempts at it, and each one was different. So they're not asking you to stick with what you say. So tell me a little bit about what's your favorite fucking meal. You don't have to. You say sushi, and then if you go to another audition and somebody says, you say it Northern Italian, and another one you say, you know what's crazy? I like German food. You ever have a schnitzel? It doesn't have to be. And then this is where you get into trouble with people well, you're not telling the truth. Well, I'm answering a question. The key is to look Johnny on the spot. That's the hard lesson I learned from live TV and having worked, when I did a panel show. It's not about so much the quippiness. It's about the quickness, and that you trust the leap of faith that something will come, and you're not married to it. And yes, that's the question. What's your favorite food? I wasn't this afflicted, but you can be so eager to please that when they say, what's your favorite food? You sit there and think about it. You think about it. You think about it. And then you go, Mediterranean. And then you don't have anything else to say. But if they say, what's your favorite food? And you go, boom, General Cho's chicken. Boom. Ha ha ha. Funny. Wow, that was quick. That's your favorite food. And then there's something to go off of. And guess what? You walk out of there. Nobody's going to say, he lied. He lied. His favorite food is fucking linguine and clams. Or kind of start to work on, this is part of what I do on the desk session. Get used to saying things. Get used to answering questions. Come up with banter. Come up with a shtick. Is it sincere? Yes. Is it insincere? Yes, probably. But it's quick, and it shows you fucking they're just trying to get a litmus test for your personality. And, biography, I'm from New Jersey. Okay, that's going to oftentimes send people down a fucking response you don't want to get into with the Jersey Shore, what exit, all that stupid shit. So you got to say something else. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And what I did, and what And then I'm incorrect. There were a bunch of questions, so it wasn't just tell me a little bit of something about yourself. It had what is your DIY experience? What are you passionate about? Like, it was a heavy burden of like trying to fill and jump through this hoop, and without prompts. But I was lucky enough to have a self-tape partner who was going to give me the prompts. But when the question was, hey, what's going on? What's your name? Hey, Carl DeGregorio, what do you tell us a little bit about yourself? And I said, well, I didn't answer. I just said, I'm really excited about everything in the arts. And then I said, oh, really? What are you excited about? And there was also a dance section to this audition. And I said, I'm looking forward to the dance. Which I'm not, because it's embarrassing, but I'm saying that. And then I start riffing and saying other things like that. And it was a good example. And I used to freeze up on these things, or I used to try to write something funny. I remember one audition, someone asked me who my favorite baseball player was, and I said Willie Mays, which was before my fucking time. And it's, if you're a stat junkie, a statistic junkie, you would know Willie Mays is like top 3 in every fucking offensive category. He's arguably the greatest of all time. And that's like the shit I'm telling you. But like, the casting director in fucking mid Wilshire district of Los Angeles doesn't fucking give a shit about Willie Mays' fucking RBI total, and you just sound boring, right? So you second guess it, and you go home and you're pissed at yourself. It wasn't a bad answer. It just didn't start like a conversation. Or someone asked me who my favorite basketball player was, and I have it down, right? You have it down. Who? Muggsy Bogues. Why Muggsy Bogues? Because he was 5'3" and he played in the NBA. The dude is 5'3", which means he was short since the 8th grade. There was never a time where he was told he was right for the sport and he made it to the top. Talk about someone who overachieved. Talk about someone who didn't take no for an answer. And so, that would be a cool answer. I never got the chance to say it. And that's the other thing. Where the sincerity comes is just like going with what comes to your mind, And you learn that stuff. Or you make it you make the bumbling, stumbling thing part of your shtick. I booked my first commercial I couldn't pronounce the word acetaminophen properly, and I kept boofing the word, and it kept getting a laugh. And then for some reason, they asked me to stay in the room to help other people in combinations of different characters set up. So I got to stay in the room and get many takes. And every time I fucked up acetaminophen, then I started turning it into a bit where I would say, and you start doing shtick, and then they started laughing. And guess what? That was the thing that booked it for me, was me being befuddled. And then after the 4th take, where it was like my frustration, and I bonded with the people in the room because I got to stay in there for a half an hour. That's what got me the job. And guess what? I didn't have to say acetaminophen in the commercial. And I got to play, because there were multiple character types, I played the stressed out med student. And so my fucking up, which was use it, because a lot of times the audition is just the sort of, you're not doing what there's dummy sides where they just want you to see what you do. And then that's the thing. And so you never know what it's going to be, but you just don't want to be stressed. And you don't want to be mad at yourself, because things like being mad at yourself or stressed or looking to please, all that shit just turns off the wells. It turns off the faucets. It turns off connection, and then people start to think they don't think you're quirky. They think you're shady. I've heard that before. Like, a guy said, I could tell you're nervous, and when you're nervous, it makes me uncomfortable. And that's the great lesson that people learn. And I guess we'll see. With self-taping, you can push through a lot of this stuff, and it's a real boon for me because I can be really loose, and I've been practicing for so long, and I'd like to get back in person maybe, but I think more people want to be back in person because they like the distraction of a day to audition, and they want the distraction of being able to sing for their supper, and they want to they need attention. You don't get a lot of it. Sometimes you're doing the shit by yourself, so there's no attention. You're literally just trying to lay a track to send in to be considered. So it's not really, attention seekers don't really dig that, and that's really what it comes down to. And I was the attention seeker, but then I also was a affection seeker, and then that was a big slippery slope. I am off on the topic, though, because I did say that moving forward, I was going to try to do different things. And one of the different things was I was going to try to have a topic going in. And the topic that presented itself, again, I guess I am on topic because I'm talking about this particular audition. It was so exhaustive, the laundry list of things they needed to be presented. And in that interview section where I talked about, they asked about my DIY experience, and I don't have a lot other than, we all have to put together couches and, things like that. But I started talking about how I like to decorate. And I said, oddly enough, the thing you might not know about me is I like to decorate. And then my partner was really smart. He's like, well, why is that odd? And I was like, I don't know, because I'm kind of like a big burly guy and you might not think about it. And then I talked about actually decorating and furnishing places. And then I talked about how it goes back to kind of the artist way and many artistic coachings and things you'll see online. They talk about your environment, your workspace, your creative space, your desk session. That why do you want to adorn it? Why do you want to make it lovely and nice? Is because that is an extension of who you are as an artist. It's living artfully. It's having a sense of color scheming. All that stuff it's essentially what makes the artist, is to be always in flow of making aesthetic choices, I suppose. But, some people are minimalist, and that's also an aesthetic choice. And I probably should be a little bit more, because you don't want clutter, obviously, just in modern living, and to stay portable. But just making artistic choices. I mean, even down to, and I know this is minutia, but even down to what your screensaver is, the choice of photos. Yes, it can or might be a loved one, but what picture out of the thousands you have that you'll use? And do you do a different lock screen and a different wallpaper? I know that's leaning into being addicted to your phone, but there are ways to make artful decisions. And then when it comes to acting, they talk about choices, right? And that your talent is your choices. You've heard that, right? And that's what I'm saying. And that's why you make more aesthetic choices day to day, every day, organizational choices, choice of font, choice of, it's frustrating that some of these apps, they change your font when you upload it. You try to change your cover picture and then you get your eyes closed on another one. Those things are frustrating because that's where the automating thing comes, where you lose some of your aesthetic decision making. And I know AI is going to replace everything, but matters of taste would still maybe come back down to the individual, and otherwise, like I said, things become homogenous. Things are already homogenized by the fact that the Facebook post, you are an individual user and you have your own picture and the stuff you say is yours and the people in you, but it is all formatted to be uniform. It is all formatted to be, where you have to click to enhance and where you have to click to, respond and reply to. And it gives Drek a sheen of professionality, because all these platforms did was basically put the typesetting and put the book builders at Vogue. They put that stuff in our hands, and and some of it is incongruous to how you would go about your layout, and that's what your individual website is. But then those tend to be templated out, and those can, and then there's standards and practices. There's industry standards and state of the art and all that stuff. And so, eventually standing out or doing something different it's like you got to play ball, I suppose. And that's what you find out about pleasing the algorithm and things like that. And again, I know I'm not saying I don't have to refine because I don't want to do that stuff. I'm not saying that. And I will find a comfort zone. But I guess the theme, and oddly enough, it came out of an audition, was that, was to live artfully even outside of your art, and that's easier to do when you're not overwhelmed. That's easier to do when you're not sick, injured, when you're not beaten down by life. And then I think that can sort of, I think what they're saying is that you build it one way. That there's an acting precept or a notion in acting that some actors are inside out and then other actors are outside in. So an inside out actor would be someone who starts with the emotionality, what they're reacting to, and then start with the heart stuff, what the feelings are, what's coming out of the actors, the character's inner life, and then that presents what the outside looks like. The physicality of the character comes from no randomized selection of voice or face, or you don't care what the hair looks. I mean, you eventually you do, but it's not like. And then the outside in contrast would be a guy who works on the accent or finds a different way for everybody to speak, and then hopefully it'll drop in and connect. They change their hairstyle. They need a mustache. They don't think about any of that. They go outside in, and I think a lot of that is just like trying to back engineer when you're asked questions about what you do. And I think most of it is all of the above. And that's kind of where I'm at, and where I'm at with, and maybe I think too much about it. The way I send my auditions, because now the beauty of it is we get to edit them. And so you can get a punchline, or I had to do a stupid dance, but I get to pick where the fucking measure of music is that I want my little dance routine to start with, to show that I'm in flow, or to show that I'm on the beat or whatever. And you get to do all that, and then you get to clip it. And I think those are aesthetic choices, because you want to send a pro tape in. You want to also be mindful of the time, not so much that there's a time limit, and you got to let things develop. But I mean, nobody's watching past them, a couple minutes, and also they don't, unless they tell you specifically. I like to backslate, but most places let you kind of make that decision. I think they wanted the slate up front. I kind of broke the rules because I wanted to lead with my best stuff, and all these decisions we get to make now, whereas we couldn't. And it's not to say we have any more control over the outcomes, but we have more control over just the way I go about it. And again, going all the way back to what I'm talking about, patting yourself on the back, or taking your own applause, or pleasing yourself for that and that alone, or celebrating small victories, or not letting yourself down. It's like, yeah, guess what? I didn't get any of them, but I made sure it wasn't just the performance that I was trying to make proper. I was also selecting beginning and end, and trying to tell a story, and turning it into something that I guess that one day that connects. But those skills can't be wasted, And now I know I kind of have, as I told you, what you might do to have an answer for a question is just, say something. That's all. And that's what I didn't learn on Chelsea lately, is just say something. Quick response, say something. And then what happens is you start to get in flow. And I've read an article that freestyle rappers and jazz musicians who improvise, that they don't judge themselves and look for a great answer or a great punchline, just like a speaking funny person on a panel. You just get out, you just start saying, and then you've practiced, or you've spoken enough in public, or you have worked all the muscles that you'll get onto something. So when somebody says, what's your favorite food? Say it right now. What's your favorite food? Don't think, what is it? I've said linguine and clams before. I said chicken chow mein. I said sushi, And is anybody checking me? Because I like to eat pizza. Pizza's probably not a great answer, only because everybody says fucking pizza. But if you said Hawaiian pizza, which is polarizing, then you got a conversation. You see what I'm saying? And it's just keep talking. Now, part of why I might want to edit these is because if I brought it all down to a time limit and didn't let it ramble, some of where I can feel where I click in or where it drops in is when I start to say things. You know what I mean? Favorite food, favorite city. You know, New York. Okay, great. Why New York? Because you don't have to drive, right? Or, you know, and all of these things are just to, you know, it's just you got to get out there. You know, how many times have you been so apprehensive on a freeway or a highway and your apprehension almost got you in trouble because if you just went out there, I mean, I had a tough time in Texas because they drive so fast. So that, and people don't merge or let you in. You have to just sort of either have acceleration or you got to, and it's crazy. But I also jammed myself up because I noticed it. I started getting tense and I fucked up, you know. And I'm not saying I should have just fucking hit the pedal and drove out there, but maybe maybe that's it. But that, you know, you're talking about safety issues there. So I guess the point of bringing it back to that is eventually you have to please yourself. You have to. One thing I know it's a very silly thing, but in the world of acting, they want full body slates. I'm 6'2". It's not even so much that I'm 6'2". It's just like I'm using my phone. I don't have a certain kind of camera with a zoom and a pullback and all that shit. We're using backdrops. I have a small place. I don't have a big enough place. So like to do a full bodies, you're going to see my shit. I don't want you to see my shit. You're going to see that I'm standing in front of a backdrop, like a photo backdrop or a scrim. And you don't want to see that. And I can't make my camera do it. I'd have to, you know, I have to do it outside or something, right? Because the zoom isn't that great, you know? So what I did is during I guess right before the pandemic or somewhere in there, my friend who worked at the studio, I said, can I get some time in there? And I brought a stack of clothes and I just made changes and we did full body slates. And they say they want one, and now I know SAG says that we don't have to provide them, but I do anyway. And then I stick them in, and they're prepared. And you get to do all these things. And, you know, it doesn't mean I'm going to get it, because someone could fuck up an audition so bad, and the lights could be bad, and they could fuck it up, and they still might get it. And that always used to really flummox me and piss me off, because it was like, How are you not like, how it's not fair. You should be deducting, you shouldn't reward people who fucked up. And it's like, yeah, but that's the world, you know. Bad fuck ups get jobs. Fuck ups book acting gigs. Yeah, they were supposed to wear a suit and they fucking wore a t-shirt and they still wound up getting it. That is unjust if it were ABC fucking elementary school and you got all the answers right, and then, you know, it's not about that. And it took me a long time to learn that, which doesn't mean I'm going to be any different. I'm still going to do the best I can, because I think, you know, that's just my process, you know. And then someday I will match with the confluence of events that I need to start getting things. But I guess that's what I mean about even the artist way, or the adorning your walls, doing it your way, living your life with, I guess, like they say, purpose, intention, aesthetically. And what happens is, if you, what's the word? If you relinquish control, i.e., if you have the money, you get a decorator. If you have money and time, you automate with, you know, very sophisticated AIs, you know, or you hire a social media team, and that's just putting money on it. But and then you kind of give them broad strokes. You know, I always like to have like earth tones, and you know, I love the Helvetica font. Like, maybe you get to say a couple of those things, and they go and they write it down. And, well, here's a package, and we can do that for you. And what happens is that becomes a consensus of tastes, whereas to really do your own thing, to really stick out, I'm thinking Bjork, who's not my favorite idea of a musician, but that's a person who stuck out. You know what I mean? You know, that's not going to be, you would never curate and then have a curated thing spit Bjork out. You just wouldn't. And I guess that's the thing between art and design and art and commerce and individuality versus homogeneity, all of that. And, I'm not, I don't, do anything extreme with my look to draw attention. And I've always, that ethos that maybe even a little misguided. The drama school ethos is you could play everything, and that's not true. There is a tiny range that all of us are blessed and or cursed with, so I guess figuring all that stuff out and drawing from, if you're able financially or whatever, drawing from the best of the best. That was my dad's outlook. We lost my dad many years ago in September, and I don't comment on it often or even talk about it that this was the month it happened, because I celebrate his birthday continually. But it just came up, and he, I guess, was a true believer in the way America was supposed to work and things like that. And everything was at, we didn't have a lot of money, but if I needed a suit, he would send me to his haberdasher, the store that he always went to. Send him over there and we'll get him one, And if you needed a winter coat and you get one that's going to last, and they got me a Burberry one year. And so everybody at college thought I was a rich kid because I had a Burberry, and I was wearing this thing like worried about how much it was putting everybody back. And maybe I was because, nobody talked about finances, but the idea was, you try to be at the level you can achieve at, when you're buying a used car, you don't buy a used Hyundai. I'm sorry for that truth, but you buy what you can afford. My theory is you get an older, high mile luxury car because the original build was better. Not because I'm trying to stunt. I can't be stunting in an 05, but the point is, at least the original build was superior, and so, and you do the best you can with the best that you can, so, and that's not keeping up with the Joneses. That's just having a quality control over your controllables, and I don't know what's going to happen. I have a big, somewhat big decision to make. I'm healing. I'm trying to get better, trying to make things happen, but it's scary because I don't know what's coming down. And then I had this sort of, like in life, it always happens. I have this, I had a lot of deadlines for auditions, and you think, oh shit, you got a bunch, law of averages, you start getting the numbers up, one of these is going to come through, and that would be thrilling. But, and then you take your eye off the ball because you're not working on the show, and because you might be mollified, and you might be led to believe that the getting those auditions, which are just sort of good fortune, good luck, and preparation meeting, opportunity. I'm still going to do the death sessions, even if I were doing them, my lips to God's ears, even if I were doing them on location in a trailer on a show that I was a series regular on. Let me start saying shit like that. I'm still going to do this because it helps me. But the whole point of getting this off the ground was to do the one-man show. And that's where that's at. So year one, New Year's Day for the death session, number 53, moving forward. I guess I'm going to be, I don't want to say letting you in more or sharing more. I don't think it should get personal necessarily. I don't want to share too many viewpoints that, just because I don't know that that's where my place is, and I'm not being self-critical, judgy, or trying to stifle myself. I'm just saying I am going to try to give more of what it is I'm trying to convey, which is, and maybe someday I will be doing this where I will click how to, because as far as acting techniques, audition techniques, stuff like that, maybe I'd give some nuts and bolts advice, right? Practice. Everybody can run the camera now. You don't have to post them, but you hold that fucker and start talking and 30 seconds. Try 30 seconds. Pick a topic. Hey guys, do that fucking thing. That's all I did, and hopefully you get better at it. I don't know how much better I got at this in 52 episodes, but I've been doing this, running my mouth. But people who are afraid to speak publicly, people who don't think that they are quick off the draw, maybe they aren't, maybe they won't be. I don't imagine it was innate for everybody. Try it. Do multiple takes, and you can erase them all, but just pick a different food when somebody asks you what your favorite food is. It's a stupid question, right? Pick and then run your mouth and pick fucking 19 of them and why. So do favorite food and why, and go and hit play and just go steak frites. It's a steak and it's French fries. That's why I like it. What are you, new? That's how you're starting to fucking riff. Maybe that is Hawaiian ribeye at Hillstone. You ever had the Hawaiian ribeye? I hate myself for how much I love the Hawaiian ribeye. You ever had the ribs? At Bloodsoe's, cream spinach, How about German potato salad? Because that's the one with the mustard and the vinegar, no mayo. Ooh, I like that. Right? So you just do a whole bunch of those fucking things. Favorite. Hot dog. You ever have a fucking hot dog that just, you was so hungry and it hit the spot and the bun was soft and then, guess what? I didn't used to like anything on it but mustard, but now as I got older, my taste buds changed. I like sauerkraut. I used to want to yell at somebody if they even used the same tongs when I was little. Ugh, sauerkraut, right? It's not that they want to know what your favorite food is. It's that they want to start to see who the fuck you are, And I know it's the time of truth or post-truth or whatever the fuck. You're not a hypocrite for changing your favorite food. If you like to eat as much as I do, it would be like picking your favorite kid, right? You know what I mean? Linguine and clam sauce. What? Spaghetti and meatballs. Mussels. Salmon. I mean, come on. Everything is delicious. And you get to talk about it, and just it's trying to create a moment. It's how you quote unquote like guys who teach nerds how to hit on chicks back in the day. They had those. Neil Strauss had that book, The Game. It's like openers. They want to hear your opener, and they call it sets and shit. And they go out and they go like and you say crazy shit. And that's why they tell you to peacock with a weird hat and shit, so that is a conversation starter. You know what I mean? And I started doing that at my my audition. When I had to wear a suit at an audition, I have my uncle's tie chain, which is a very kind of antiquated, kind of old school Italian way to like use a tie clip, but it's a chain and it's got initials. It's not even in line with the look you're going for, but you wear it at an audition, and the casting director's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's my uncle's." And then you're in the room longer, you're showing more of your personality. Then if you know you're prepared, then you get to be a good actor too. So you get 2 victories just by like having a little flair, a little something off the beaten track, and that you can accomplish with your answers. My friend Sarah Mornell, she's an acting coach. She's has her students practice. Don't fucking say how you doing, good. And you, when you get that chance to be in person or even on Zoom, like you gotta have something, have an opener. I'd be careful. My tendency would I'd try to find a back in the day I might try a complaining thing. You gotta be careful with that, because that comes off negative, and that's something that I've had to contend with. They don't want commiseration. They wanted my better, and this was a casting director brought me in multiple times. This is the casting director I told you I reached out via email to when I saw her name in the credits. Like, this is a fruitful connection, and I got comfortable enough. So her assistant, the person who comes to get you in the lobby, there's that walk back, I started talking about, I love coming to this office because it's like aromatherapy in here. And she's like, yeah, it does smell good, doesn't it? And boom, there you go. Not, oh man, traffic is really fucked up on the 405. Like, just, that's why if you come up with a random favorite food, don't say Italian, say spaghetti bolognese. Oh, Jesus, bolognese. Yeah, chicken marsala. Something so specific. Because then it's like, well, and then, or T-bone, Florentine steak, empanadas. Like, who doesn't like empanadas? Like, now I'm making myself hungry and hopefully, but you get what I'm saying, I mean, if somebody asked me who my favorite musician is, I would always say Bruce. I don't listen to Bruce, but if I said, hey, Jamiroquai, I don't know why, brand new heavies, Zeppelin, you're not married to it. They're not going to take your answer and hold you to. It's not a desert island disc scenario where they're gonna, and now it's all, what I'm saying. But I was always trying to be like, what's my real answer? It's like, you live and learn, and I got to stop beating myself up for the past, which we all have to do, and take some of this really rough and wisely learned, like some of this rough lessons, take them forward. Take the victory lap, take the wisdom of your years and try to turn some of this stuff that from hard lessons, try to take some of that into your next days, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I think that's a good way to end it. What's your favorite food? Practice a couple of quick zingers on that, and your favorite band. If you said Oasis, if you said Oasis while you were in the middle of an audition and they were just at the Rose Bowl, how do you lose? I guess it could be polarizing, and that's the big fear. But, it's, I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been on a lot of those auditions where they asked me that. But that's just an example of saying something. Say something and the funny will come. Say something and then the next note will come. Say something and the next rhyme will come. That's what the freestylers understand. And that's why they pause and, just you got to kind of do that for yourself. And, that's practicing. And that's practicing your art, which is writing and feeling and jamming out to tunes and hanging cool pictures on your walls. And, dare I say, it took me a long time. Dare I say, get a shower curtain that's got some nice. I used to just hang the plastic thing because I was like, but now I hang a shower curtain, and guess what? It's washable. And then you throw away the liner and you get a new liner. And when you need a new liner, then you wash the old one and you get, it's aesthetics. Plus, if you don't want to scrub the tub all the time, you keep the shower curtain. Nobody's peeking in there when they go to the job. You see what I'm saying? All right. 53 in the books, moving into the new year. Let's go. All right. Peace.